Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse. Today on our Cheap Trick series, we are taking a look at 1980's All Shook Up and 1982's One on One. Ryan Gavalier and I will be reviewing and discussing both of these post-Tom Worman releases. For me, this is where the crack started forming for Cheap Trick, but I'm really looking forward to see what Ryan has to say about these two releases. But before we start, let's look at some upcoming and current programming on the channel. Todd Evans and Reed Little and I discussed our two favorite Cure tracks off of the first four albums. This episode was recorded today, and I should have this online soon. Coming soon on the Contrarians, Martin, Marco, Todd, and I took a look at the Doors. This is what I consider the Contrarians' quote-unquote extreme episode. I'm not sure when this will be released, but please keep your eyes peeled for this upcoming episode on the Contrarians. Check out our panel discussion on Obscure Albums number 4. This was just live streamed last night, and the panel had a blast. I thought this was going to be the last episode in the series, but the panel voted, and the series will continue. Stay tuned for more episodes coming in August, but in the meantime, check out the latest episode in Obscure Albums. Ryan, Davey, Rand, and I looked at the Beach Boys' 1970 album Sunflower. This was also streamed last night, and what a blast. I want to thank everyone who showed up in the chat. We have more Beach Boys content to come. In fact, I think next month we are going to look at the Beach Boys album, Carl and the Passions, so stay tuned. Todd Evans and I will be looking at the acclaimed Georgia band Guadalcanal Diary. We will be having a general discussion and having a look at their 4 electro releases. This will be coming up in August, so stay tuned for that. Please like, subscribe, ring the bell, you know the thing. Let's get to Ryan and Cheap Trick. Ryan Gavalier drinking a beverage as we make the transition. You're a goddamn professional, for God's sakes. Well, anyway, I want to welcome my guest. You've seen him before. He's everywhere. He has his own channel, Ryan's Vinyl Destination. He's been on the Contrarians. He's been on Rock Daydream Nation. You've been everywhere, right, Ryan?
Yep.
Yeah. And you've seen him. We've been doing this Cheap Trick episode for, well, a while. And we are now up to All Shook Up, 1980s All Shook Up, and 1982's One on One. So I'm just going to get it started. Cheap Trick doesn't need any. We don't have to do an introduction at this point. Go back to the other videos if you need an intro. Ryan, let's start with you. What is your basic thoughts with All Shook Up? Give an album rating, a basic review, tracks that you like. You know the routine.
Yeah. So All Shook Up, it's not an album that I have spent a whole lot of time with in my life. Obviously, I studied for this, and I've heard it before that as well, but it's just not one that I've spent as much time with as Heaven Tonight and, the debut, Dream Police, even In Color, I've listened to way more in this. So, obviously, we have George Martin producing on this one, which was an interesting choice. It seems like this, and then you have UFOs, No Place to Run. You have these hard rockin' bands picking up George Martin to produce in the early 80s.
What year was No Place to Run?
I think 81 also, or 80.
So this
80.
is all within that same area of time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird that they both went for George Martin. I could see it a bit more with Cheap Trick than I do with UFO, because Cheap Trick has some very Beatles-esque sounds at times. And we definitely get that on this album. I think that this is a good album. I'm not going to say it's as great as the others that we've talked about so far, but I still gave it an 8 out of 10. I think it's a pretty solid album.
That's
still.
A pretty good review, Ryan. 8 out of 10? Holy crap.
Yeah. I think that there's a couple tracks on here that are a little bit weak.
Well, go ahead. Yeah.
including the first track, Stop This Game.
You think Stop This Game is weak?
At least a weak opener.
I don't know about that.
For
But
me,
go
it
ahead. You
is.
keep going. We'll come back around.
I think the reason why I feel that way is that I think the intro of the song is kind of cheesy. And that's right where we start the album off, is with that intro. I think the rest of the song is actually pretty cool. Definitely a different guitar sound than we've heard so far. Not as big. Not as big as other tracks. I mean, other albums that the band has had. I just think that George Martin focused on having more of a balanced production than the guitar heavy nature. But I think it's actually pretty cool. Enjoy it. And I think this is a good track. It wouldn't have been my opener. I think actually Just Got Back would have probably been a better opener than Stop.
Oh, God, no. No offense, Ryan. I love you like a brother. Just Got Back. That is total. Of course, we're talking to a hardcore Cheap Trick fan, but Just Got Back seems like filler to me.
I like that track a lot.
Okay.
I think it has
I'll give it that.
I think it has kind of like a Ramones type of energy to it, and like the way that the vocals are delivered and just the general chord progression.
I can see that. I can see that. Yeah.
I think it's really catchy as well. Like this song, the melody of the vocals just gets stuck in my head. That and I just got back. It's really catchy to me. Like I said, kind of a like light, like Ramones type punk vibe. Not really punk. I wouldn't, but like, yeah, I think that I really like Robin's vocals on this track. I like the drumming in this song actually, like especially in the opening. You have those big bombastic drums in your ears, and it's pretty cool. I think that the guitar sounds better on this track than on Stop This Game. It's a bit more Rick Nielsen, a little bit more kick to it. I think this is one of the best tracks on the album, honestly.
Okay.
I've always really liked it. And I do think that the energy of it would have been good for an opening on this album. It would have been different for the band for sure, to have something like that as the opener, but I just think it would be more successful in Stop This Game. That probably would have been a better side 2 track. Let's see here. Baby Loves to Rock. I said it's a pretty great rocker, except the production could use a little bit more of a kick in the ass. It feels really tame, especially because it's a pretty rockin' track, but the production itself is kind of watered down. I do really like Robin on this track, though. I think that it's kind of soulful. There's a good melodic guitar part during the chorus. When he's just singing, I think just Baby Loves a Rock and stuff. And there's some good guitar there. Bluesy guitar solo on this track. Can't Stop It, but I'm going to try. So it's kind of a moody rocking track. I really like the guitar and the keyboards on this one a lot, especially the keyboards. Robin definitely sings kind of a Beatles-esque vocal performance on here, which is cool. I always like when he gets into that kind of voice. I'd say it's not one of the better tracks, but I still like it quite a bit.
Okay.
Now, World's Greatest Lover, I think, is a really, really good track. This is one of my favorites on here. You have a beautiful acoustic guitar sound on this.
Yes.
Very, very Beatles. Robin kind of sounds like John Lennon vocally on this track to me. So it's kind of experimental in some ways. I love the keyboard arrangements. The guitar solo is very George Harrison-like. I just think this is definitely one of the best on the album. High Priest of Rhythmic Noise says, heavy and weird. There's a lot of cool vocal effects on this, like really weird, like robotic vocals and stuff. Then Robin, his actual performances are very shouty, and I like that. Another really solid track on here. It's kind of a punk energy with some tinges of like electronica with the vocal effects and stuff. So that's really cool track there. Love Comes a Tumbling Down is pretty hard rocking. I said that there's some Paul McCartney like vocals on it, a punky energy to it, great guitar sound, really solid track there. I Love You, Honey, But I Hate Your Friends, kind of catchy. It's an alright track. It's not one of my favorites on here, but it's pretty heavy, so that's cool. Go for the Throat. The intro sounds like Cheap Trick's version of Black Sabbath. It's kind of like sludgy sounding. And that's interesting. It's a very Beatles-esque song, though, once you actually get into the song. Robin just sounds fantastic on here. I think Who the King, not really a great closer track for the album. It's like Cheap Trick trying to do African music, and it's like a cool experiment, but I don't think that it worked as the closer for the album. It just
Peter Jones, Who the King, of course he likes that.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool. I just think it's a bad closer to the album.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. So I like the album. I'd say it's not one of the more consistent albums we've gotten so far. I think it's mostly really good, but it doesn't have really any of the highs that other albums had for me, except for like World's Greatest Lover. But I gave it an 8 out of 10. I think it's a solid album. It's still a very, very good Cheap Trick album. It feels like a little bit of a drop from what we've gotten before.
Oh, it's quite a bit of drop. So would you give it 4 out of 5 then, probably?
Yeah, 4 out of 5, 8 out of 10.
Okay, that's fair. Actually, Ryan, that's a really good review, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I mean, it's Cheap Trick, and I don't know. There's little things about it. I think that, I don't know if I feel like George Martin was the best choice for the band. Like, I think what he did was cool with them, but I think it lacked the edge of other Cheap Trick that we've gotten so far. It just feels a bit more, I think it feels, even though it does have some punky energy to it, I think the album itself feels a little bit watered down from what we've gotten on past albums. I think mostly because of the production, because I think the songs in general are pretty heavy, but it's a solid album. I mean, it was an interesting experiment to get George in there. I think just like the UFO album, they're both good albums, but was George Martin the right choice for the band? No.
Excellent. I love everything you said, though I kind of disagree with some of it.
That's fair.
I'm a little bit harder on this record than you are. Back when this came out, I remember when this came out, because when it came out, I had already been hardcore Cheap Trick guy. In Color, Heaven Tonight, the first album, blah, blah, blah. When this came out, I remember we were like in science class or something. We were talking about it, and I went, some chick that I was talking to was like, well, she dug it, but I'm going, oh, I don't know. I see a major drop. And I think, let me hide this. The Rolling Stone Record Guide, or maybe Rolling Stone Magazine, gave this a 4-star review. Back in the day, I believe they gave it probably a 2-star. I think this album has aged well, Because once you look at the Cheap Trick catalog and you kind of go back in time, when this came out after Dream Police, this was kind of a big shock because there definitely was a drop in quality. Now, do I think it was George Martin's fault or Jeff Emmerich, who was the engineer? I don't know. My whole theory that I've always said with Cheap Trick is that Jack Douglas, although he failed in 1985 with Standing on the Edge, it could have been way more than it should have been. But I still, even though Martin Popoff probably will disagree, I still think Tom Werman knew exactly what to do with this band. We have In Color, we have Heaven Tonight, Dream Police, which are all 5-star classics. Now, I understand Cheap Trick would like to go with George Martin. They're big Beatle fans. I get it. They love the British invasion. I totally understand. Was George Martin the best producer for this material? If we would have had Tom Werman involved in this, how would this record have been? How would we look at this record if Tom Werman was back in the saddle and produced this material? I think it could have been an excellent follow-up to Dream Police. Oh, there's comments coming galore. We'll look at those after I'm done talking. I think there's good material on this record, but I think that the production, and God bless George Martin on this, I think that Tom Werman knew exactly what to do with Cheap Trick, unlike George Martin. I think Cheap Trick goes to George Martin to think that they can produce like their Sgt. Pepper, their White Album, you're laughing, but think about this band loves this. They love the Beatles. They're thinking they can go to George Martin and Jeff Emmerich and they can produce like some kind of life-changing record for their catalog. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen. I think a lot of the stuff that Rick Nielsen had written, you look at the first album, you look at In Color, you look at Heaven Tonight, you look at Dream Police. I think you may look at, maybe there's some cracks forming on Dream Police. I don't think so. But I think Rick Nielsen had written all these songs way in advance. By the time he got to like Dream Police and All Shook Up, he was running out of songs. Like what they always say. You have your whole life to write your first album. By this time, maybe he's running out of stuff. But let's kind of look at this record real quick. So I don't want to be too critical, but, I'm a big fanboy. I get all worked up. Stop This Game, I think, is an absolute brilliant. I think that's a brilliant opener. They used to, back in like 81 or something, when Tom Peterson had left and they were out playing, they would open up with Stop This Game. There's a concert from like Chicago on the pier from 81, which is absolutely brilliant. And I do believe my friend Beth, who is on the chat, was at that show. Hopefully she's still on the chat, but I think she was at that show. Just Got Back. Oh, we were going to have Todd Evans is on fire. Just Got Back, I think's an okay track. I don't think it's quite up to what came before, but I think it's okay. Baby Loves to Rock, I think is a classic Cheap Trick. I'm not sure if Tom Peterson's on that. I think Rick Nielsen might have played the bass part on there. Because I'm not exactly there. Beth says, look, yes, I know you were there. I know you were there. Baby Loves to Rock, I think, is classic Cheap Trick. The only thing I think that's lacking is the Tom Werman production. With this whole record, I think that's what it likes. There was something about Tom Werman and that engine. Was it Gary? What was the engineer's name? It's just magical. But it's okay. I'll take it. World's Greatest Lover. Okay, wait a minute. Can't stop it, but I'm going to try. I like that song. In fact, I think they played that. If I'm not wrong, I think they might have played that live. I'm not sure. World's Greatest Lover is excellent. If you've got the box set, you've got the Rick Nielsen vocal on there. Oh my God. Ryan, we may have broken the internet. I'm not sure. World's Greatest Lover. I agree with you 100%. I think that's a great track. Absolutely brilliant. Brilliant. Robin Zander's vocal on that, I think, is top notch. High Priest of Rhythmic Noise. They did that live. If you look at the Chicago show, they did High Priest of Rhythmic Noise, and then it like segued into something else. Maybe Beth can help me on that. I can't remember, but I believe they did that, and then they segued into something else, and I think it worked out brilliantly. I Love You, Honey, But You Hate Your Friends. I think that's an old song that they brought back out, but I think it kind of falls flat with the George Martin production. Had Tom Werman had a chance with it, I think we could have had some magic. But I still like it. When they play it live, it has that Cheap Trick magic. I just think that the studio version of it kind of, I don't know, it lacks a bit. Go for the Throat. I think that's okay. That's not bad. It doesn't bother me. But Hood King, that's just filler. We're the Cheap Trick thinking, well, we have George Martin, we have Jeff Emmerich. Are we going to be creative here? Are we going to do like Pepper kind of stuff? I don't know. It's okay, but I don't think we need it. I think that Rick Nielsen probably had other tracks that we could have used here. I mean, it's fine, but it's not. I don't know.
Yeah.
What would I rate this record? Well, back in the day when it came out, I totally thought Cheap Trick had jumped the shark. But I think when you look back and you compare this album with what came after, I can group this with the first album, which was Jack Douglas, the Tom Werman albums, and I'll put this with the golden era, because if you look at it, it really has aged well. Back when it came out, it didn't look so good. I'm just saying. But I can look at it now and I think, okay, I'll put it with the golden era stuff. But let's look like, oh my God, Ryan. Hold on. Let's go backwards. Okay, so Peter Jones said, I have no issues with the track listing, and Stop This Game and Just Got Back are great. 1-2 punch. And Baby Loves to Rock is a perfect follow-up. Okay, I'll give you that. Peter, I do not agree with who'd be king rules. Ryan, what do you think? No? Filler. I mean, it's filler.
It's cool, but it's not a good closer.
No.
If it was in the middle of the album, I could have had some fun with that, but not the last track.
But think about it. This record is not Sgt. Pepper.
No, it's not.
Unless you've got like a conceptual piece or an idea for a record, I don't think that just to throw this on there for the hell of it, that doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's easily the weakest track on the album.
And Beth, of course, this record, well, they've always been influenced by the Beatles, the Yardbirds, any of the British invasion bands, The Move, Roy Wood, Jeff Lynne, they were highly influenced by that. And then Peter said, this is the first album where the punk style that was soaking the first album is long gone. Well, I don't hear so much punk on the first album. I just hear more the move than anything.
Mhm.
All right, that's me. Todd Evans, here we go. I agree with BM Volt. All shook up. Outstanding side one, weak side two. What do you think of that, Ryan?
Uh, I don't know. I think it's not that simple, honestly. I think that what do we got here? I mean, we have some good tracks on
Yeah.
side two. I think. No, I don't
Well,
agree with
it's
that. I don't.
I don't know. I don't think it's quite as strong as side one. I think I
It's not
might
as.
agree with that.
I don't think it's quite as strong as side one, but I wouldn't say it's weak. I think that both sides have weaknesses to them, honestly.
The whole record has weaknesses, but
Yeah, that's why
I
I think
will
it's.
agree that I think side one is stronger than side two.
It's probably stronger. I will agree with that. I mean, side two has some kind of pointless stuff on it. So I don't know. Yeah.
Peter Jones, I think the only real changes are in songwriting. These are clearly more in the style of the Beatles and When in Rome. It is reasonable they acted like Romans. Well, hmm, I agree to that to some degree, but I think, like I said before, if we would have taken this album, gave it to Tom Werman, I think it would have been a stronger effort. I think we would have looked at this album a lot differently than we look at it now.
I
Even though I'm lumping it in with that group of records, Heaven Tonight, Dream Police, In Color, the first album, which are 5-star records. This is where the cracks are forming. I'll leave it at that. I think if Tom could have worked with the songs that Rick Nielsen had, I think he could have molded them into something better. That's all I'm going to say. I don't know how much George Martin did, but I don't know.
honestly, I don't know if Tom Werman would have been what this album needed. I don't know if I
I think
agree with
so.
that.
I think so.
I don't know. I don't know if his style would have fit all the songs entirely. I think that some of this stuff did kind of need George Martin because I think that it's a mix of the songwriting and the production because I don't think the production's as big as past albums, but also the songwriting isn't quite as big as past albums either.
Todd Evans, Tom Werman would never have been able to do Stop This Game. Why do you say that? And World's Greatest Lover like George Martin did. Those two songs alone say the album. They just didn't have enough songs. I I don't know. They were doing strings on Dream Police. I think Tom Werman was more than capable on those songs. And then, of course, yes, we talked about that before. I knew she was at those damn shows. Thanks for the validation, Todd. Well, Byron, I thought you had my back, but that's okay. It's all right. I'm just giving you shit. Um, Chicago Fest at the Navy Pier. Peter Jones, were you there? I have no doubt you probably were. They seem to be incorporating more technology on this album. That carried over to the tracks on heavy metal, especially I Must Be Dreaming. But don't forget, those tracks were produced by Roy Thomas Baker. We're in a totally different realm. And I will bring this up later. I wish Roy Thomas Baker would have used more of the production aspects on I Must Be Dreaming and what's the Pete Comita song? Reach Out than what he did on One on One. I'm just throwing it out there. Okay. Maybe Rick was trying to change it up. I think of course they were. They are probably I don't know what happened with Tom Werman and why they changed, but it's kind of like Mike Love, don't fuck with the formula. But I don't know. I wasn't there. Byron's got a lot of fans. Peter Jones. Okay, here we go. Stop this game. Hello there. I will be with you tonight. I want you to want. Oh my goodness, I can't read all that. Peter, you're just such a big fanboy. I'm just going to leave it right there. I don't think hello there is filler. If no, Peter, for God's sakes, man. They use that on every concert opener. That is no, that's brilliant. How many bands do that? They start off with the whole hello there and goodbye. Oh, come on.
I think it's simple, but it's brilliant. Hello
right.
there, ladies and gentlemen. Hello there.
But hello there works. It does work. It's classic.
Yes. When they did it at the Cheap Trick concert I was just at, when they opened the show with it, I nearly lost my mind. It sounded so good. Oh.
Okay. Peter Jones, you wouldn't have these songs with Tom. That is the point. Well, you wouldn't know, but I think Tom Werman could have molded these into something better. Just because George Martin knows how to work with America and the Beatles doesn't mean he knows how to work with Cheap Trick 100%. Tom Werman knew exactly what to do with Cheap Trick. Beth Potts, I agree with Todd. Seems like there's only a handful of songs that I like on there. Well, I'm going to go back to the producer on that. Rhodey, the truck driver chainsaw got us in. So my friend Beth used to follow Cheap Trick around. In fact, you might want to say she was a groupie. She followed Van Halen around. She followed Cheap Trick around. Beth, you could add more. You could throw out more people that you followed around. But evidently the truck driver chainsaw was the guy that they knew that would get her and her friend Terry into the show backstage.
Wow.
So, yes, I know that story. That's an in-your-face start.
Hello there.
We could have written the movie about my friend Beth. She followed all these bands around. It's so funny. All right, that's all the comments. We went through the comments. So based on that, Ryan, holy crap. I think we've covered all Shook Up. Do you want to jump to one-on-one and give us your thoughts? Because I'm sure that's going to start a whole other thing,
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Oh, Peter Jones, wait a minute. You're missing my point. Hello, as an album track only, was filler. It was 1 minute and 41 seconds long. Until they used it to open all their shows, it became a full-on classic. But I don't agree.
I don't either.
Just because it's 1 minute 41, does that make it filler? As far as I know, Cheap Trick in Color is considered a power pop masterpiece. I don't agree with that, but I appreciate your comments and I love you as a human. Anyway, Ryan, wait a minute. All right, here we go, kids. We're going on to One-on-One, which came out in 1982. Rolling Stone rated this album a 3-star. This was produced by Roy Thomas Baker, who also produced Cheap Trick prior to this on heavy metal for Reach Out. Ryan, go ahead and take it. Let's hear your thoughts on this record.
All right, so 1-on-1. First of all, here's my original Japanese pressing of the record, obi and everything. This is, I don't know, I really like Roy Thomas Baker a lot. And I really like Cheap Trick a lot. So this should work out well. And I think at times this album works really well, but I think that Cheap Trick also lost their sound. I think in having Roy Thomas Baker in the production seat, a lot of these songs sound just like the Cars, and it's like, what the hell? I think there's like 3 or 4 songs that sound like they could be Cars songs.
It could be like Ryan, it could be the Cars Door to Door album. It's kind of noisy. Maybe
I think Door to Door is a better album, honestly. I like Door.
Crap. Okay.
I mean, I like this one too, actually. And I'll get to that in a moment, but what I was going to say is there's even songs on here where Robin's vocals sounds like he's trying to do the quirky stuff that Rick Ocasek does vocally. I'll get to that later as well. But I think there is perks to having Roy Thomas Baker in the production seat on this album as well. Especially with the guitar sound, because the guitar sounds really good on this album, I feel like. I think that it's much better than it was on All Shook Up because it's not drowned into the middle of all the other instruments. Mm-hmm. On this album, it is back to a guitar prominent Cheap Trick, even though there is keyboards. But yeah, the guitar is very, very dominant on this record. And also Robin's vocals are very dominant. You have a lot of aggressive Robin vocal performances on here, which was a good direction from Roy Thomas Baker. So I'm going to go through the tracks. So I'll start off with I Want You, which I think is actually a good heavy opener. I think this is a much better opener than Stop This Game. And so I think the guitar sounds excellent on here. And my real issue with the production on this album is the drums. They're really, really, really weak on this album. They sound so fake. It's kind of upsetting, especially after. I mean, I thought the drums sounded.
Well, what about the drums you don't like? I'm just curious.
They just sound so overproduced.
Well, you have to also think, what year was this? 82? You know where we're heading in this era.
These don't fit the sound of the guitars at all.
Gotcha.
The guitars of this sound like a old school Cheap Trick album, but the drums sound like it could be on like Pump by Aerosmith. It's like
well, Ryan, at least they're real drums.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that.
They sound like they aren't, though, honestly, sometimes. It's pretty bad. So I think that's the one thing that really dates this album, because the rest of the production's pretty cool, but then you have these damn drums, which aren't just your typical 80s drums. These sound bad. But yeah, I think this is a cool song, though. I like it. Oh, but in the track I want...
No. I want to add this real quick before we go on. If you're familiar with the Cars albums, any of the Roy Thomas Baker albums, I'm going to throw out Foreigner Head Games, which I love that record. Mm-hmm. Listen to the drums on there. Roy Thomas Baker, and I can't think who was the engineer on this. Well, Ian Taylor was the engineer on here, but he would engineer the next record with Todd Rundgren. Or no, I think Ian Taylor might have played keyboards. Sorry, I don't remember. But if you listen to any Roy Thomas Baker albums, the drums sound like shit. And I don't want to cuss like Davey does, but I have never heard a good drum sound on a Roy Thomas Baker song. Maybe Night at the Opera by Queen, maybe that, but Foreigner Head Games, it sounds like they're hitting like paper boxes. It sounds horrible.
I think his drum sound works for the Cars, though. I think it, especially like on an album like Candio, which is so weird. I think the drums are okay for that. The drums don't sound good with Cheap Trick. The drums sound that Roy Thomas Baker gets. So while it worked for a band like the Cars, who are already kind of new wavy, who already have some little electronica feelings or like old school rocky, like the drums are okay for that, but not Cheap Trick. They sound very neutered on this album. And overproduced and fake, and it's upsetting. But I was gonna say the drums get really, really bad in the song I Want You when the guitars cut out and it's just the singing and the drums. It's like, no, don't show the drums off. They're already the worst part of the song, and now they're the forefront of the song. It's like, whatever. Okay. It's still a good song though. The title track, One on One, I like this. It has a good riff on it. The drums are really bad on this, but otherwise it sounds like an old school Cheap Trick song. And I said that we're definitely missing Tom's 12-string bass on this album so far. You could definitely tell the lack of a low end on this album, and it hurts. Just because, I mean, if you look at some of the albums that that they did before. I mean, if you look at Heaven Tonight, the bass sound on that album, and then you compare it to what we get on this, if we could even call it a bass sound, because it's pretty weak.
You do know the story behind this, right? You, of course, Tom Peterson left.
Yeah.
We had what's his name? Oh crap. I hate having a brain problem. Pete Canita, who filled in and did the tracks on Heavy Metal. Pete left. Rick Nielsen is playing the bass on this record. So I don't think there's really any 12. Don't quote me. Wait a minute. Notes. See, okay. Pete Canita left the group in the early recording stages of 101 and was replaced by John Brandt. So this was the first album to feature Brandt. Most of it was recorded without him. Guitarist Rick Nielsen played bass on all but 3 tracks. Saturday at Midnight, If You Want My Love, and She's Tight. So, I mean, most of it's Rick Nielsen. Did he use the 12-string bass?
Oh, I doubt it. That's what I was saying. That's why I was saying we're really missing Tom and his 12-string bass on here.
It sounds a bit thin compared to what we had before. It sounds a bit thin compared to the productions of Roy Thomas Baker. No one is going to say Queen Night at the Opera sounds thin. Agreed? Why does this record sound so thin in that production? If you listen to Foreigner Head Games, I don't think that record sounds thin. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with this.
I don't know. I mean, it's strange, though. It really takes away from the atmosphere overall. But I was going to say also, I think that 101's pretty good, though. The chorus is kind of repetitive. It's good, but it's really repetitive. So not the best. If You Want My Love, I do really like this one. Robin sounds really great on here. The backing sounds great. It's perfect power pop, and there's some really great acoustic guitar on this track. I think this one's one of the better songs. Ooh La La La. It's kind of catchy and simple. I don't know. I think that Robin has a lot of good aggression on here.
Mhm.
There's some pretty hooky riffs on this track. It's kind of dumb, but I like it, and I think it starts to get a lot better as it's going on. I just think that yeah, it grows on you as the song gets on. For a while, I think it takes a little while to get into it, a lot of ooh la las and stuff, but once it actually gets in, it's pretty cool. Looking out for number one's pretty rocking. I said this is one of the tracks that sounds a lot like the Cars. Um, Great guitar sound though, excellent chorus. The drum sounds bad, but it's not quite as bad as on some of the other tracks. Robin's really great on there though. She's Tight's another kind of Cars sounding song. And Robin really sounds like Rick on this track. All the phrasing, the way he kind of like jumps his like weird little vocal things that he does. It sounds like he's doing a Rick
There you are. You're back.
impersonation here. It's really strange. Huh?
No, you've kind of went into the outer space for a minute.
Oh.
But you're back. You're good.
Cool. I said the chorus sucks on this song.
On She's Tight?
Yeah.
Oh, Ryan, for God's sakes.
I don't like it. It's boring.
I'm just giving you shit. I think it's a great song.
I think the riff's all right on it. It's not the best though. It sounds like the Cars. It's kind of weird.
Well, think about it. 1982. Well, what came out in 82? Shake It Up. That's 82. I guess this is all kind of. Roy Thomas Baker did that in 82.
I know. And I think he did a lot better on that than he did on here.
All right, that's fair enough.
He fit the Cars. I don't think entirely he fit Cheap Trick.
I think he fit Cheap Trick on the heavy metal soundtrack because those tracks sound great.
Yeah, I mean,
Reach Out and oh my God, Reach Out is if we would have continued on with what he did on heavy metal, holy crap.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah, and then I said Time Is Running. It's good power pop. It's got some really good harmonies on it. Robin kind of sounds a little like Roger Daltrey on certain parts of this track, which is one of his voices that he tends to use a lot.
Yeah.
I like the chord progressions in this one quite a bit. Saturday at Midnight's very Cars sounding. Sounds like it could have been on Candio at times. But the drums, once again, terrible. Really good keyboards, though. Really good guitar. Kind of quirky vocals on this one. And I don't know. The pre-chorus is kind of boring, but I really like the chorus. I think the chorus, you get very like those weird effects, kind of robot noisy, new wavy. But when he's just really up in that high kind of register, Saturday midnight and stuff during the pre-chorus, I don't really care for that too much. It's a little annoying. But Love's Got a Hold on Me. Very Stonesy sounding power pop here. I like the backing vocals. I think they add a lot to that Stonesy type of sound along with the guitar. And the energy of the song's pretty good as well. I mean, I enjoy it. I think it's one of the upper tracks on here. I Want Be Man is real cool. I like this track. It's energetic. It has some electronic sounding stuff in it, some punky stuff. I think it's one of the better Robin vocals we've heard on the last couple albums. And I think that the vocal effects are really cool on this one. Again, I like all that stuff that they've been doing on this album with like the robotic effects. There's really good production on here. 4-letter Word, not a great closer again. Kind of sounds like them doing like some kind of Led Zeppelin type of thing, but with shitty drums. And I don't know, Robin sounds pretty good on it. But
Robin always sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the best singers in rock, but um, I also think that the bass is very, very lacking on this song. I don't know. I like this album. I can listen to it. I have a little bit of a soft spot for it, but I'm not going to pretend that it's a great album because it's really not. I'd say it's if I had to give it a rating, I'd probably give it a 6 out of 10. I think it's good, but it's
3 out of 5 then? Like
yeah,
Rolling
3 out.
Stone record guy gave it?
Yeah, I think they were honestly on point with these two reviews today. I I'm not gonna go lower with the album because I like most of the tracks on it. It's kind of a heavy album musically. There's some cool riffs on it. Robin sounds top of his game on here, but the lack of bass and the terrible drum sound really take from a lot of the tracks. And I think that not every song on here tends to be super memorable Cheap Trick songs. So I'm gonna give it a 6. It's
I mean,
not.
there's some good memorable things, but got
There
to pick
is
and
some
choose.
there's some really good moments on here, and that's why it's going to get a 6.
Okay.
Um, yep.
I think, Ryan, I think that's a fair review.
Thanks.
Not that I'm trying to judge you or anything, but I totally get your points. I think, yeah, I totally get it 100%. Zeb said, no doubt Todd Rundgren saved them after the dreaded one-on-one. Zeb, I love you like a brother, but I disagree. I don't think Todd, well, we'll look at that next month, but yeah, I disagree. Beth said, no Tom Peterson bummer. Well, yeah, he was gone. He was hanging out with, what was his wife's name? Dagmar. I should have brought that album out, but I put it back in the Tom Peterson solo album with Dagmar. What a horrible record. Todd Evans, we need to talk about this. Jeff Workman engineered Foreigner Head Games and Journey Evolution, which both have that drum sound Grant is talking about. Yes, Workman would add distortion to the drums to make them sound bigger. Well, Todd, I think they made the drums sound like shit. I don't know what Jeff Workman was doing. What else did Jeff Workman do? Was he always a producer for Roy Thomas Baker? Did he do other stuff? I don't know. I don't care for what he did on it. I'll give him. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Girls Like What song, Beth? I don't know. I guess that's it. Well, let me go into my spiel.
Cool.
Like I said, Rolling Stone gave this 3 stars. All Music gave it 3 stars. Robert Christgau, who we bring this up more like a joke, though I get a kick out of his reviews. He gave this a B. So usually like what? Oh boy, here we go. If you like one-on-one just a tad more than All Shook Up, I think there are a couple more good songs on one-on-one, 7.5. All right, Byron, I got that. And If You Want My Love. Oh, well, that's such a great song. It's a classic Cheap Trick song. Holy crap. But it seems like Robert Christgau, he'll give something a B, and then we look at it and go, I don't know. But do I like this record then more than All Shook Up? I'm going to say no. I think All Shook Up's a better record. I think the production on All Shook Up is better. Mm-hmm. I think Roy Thomas Baker, I don't know if it was money. I don't know if Cheap Trick was in a rush. They recorded this album from 1981 to 82. I don't think that maybe it was because Tom Peterson left. Did it disrupt the chemistry in the band? We don't have, we've got John Bryant back for some of it, but Pete Comita left. Christgau might be a contrarian. He should be on the Contrarians. He could sit up there in a chair with Martin. I like that. I like that, Byron. I like you. Um, so, and like I said, compared to what Roy Thomas Baker did with his production on heavy metal, I think Reach Out, I think the tracks on heavy metal are great. If you closed your eyes, Ryan, you might have thought that those might have been Tom Werman productions because on those tracks, the guitars sound great, the drums sound great. It sounds like Cheap Trick to me. One on One does sound like Cheap Trick, but it sounds like Cheap Trick trying to be heavy metal, and I don't think Cheap Trick's heavy metal. And I think that Roy Thomas Baker wanted Robin to scream on the whole album.
Mm-hmm.
And Robin doesn't necessarily do that on every record. And I feel like Robin Zander, much like Paul Stanley, is screaming at me through the whole thing. I think it's okay because I think Robin can do that, but I think I would like a little bit more variety on this record.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree.
I Want You's a good opener, but then we've got Robin screaming at me. One on One's okay. If You Want My Love, okay. The tracks that I think are stone cold classics. If You Want My Love, Looking Out for Number One, I think is a track that they used to play back in the day before they were signed. That's an old song. Oh, here we go. One of your fans, Ryan. Best, didn't Ryan say it sounded like I agree with that. There you go, Ryan. Some notoriety. Beth agrees. Beth. She gets it. But Looking Out for Number One sounds like an old Cheap Trick song. I like it. I think there's a bootleg out there with them playing in like a bar in Wisconsin, and they play that. Don't quote me. I don't have my notes in front of me, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. She's Tight, I think, is classic Cheap Trick. I love that. The whole interplay with, if you see the video, the woman. Oh, here's Ernesto. There he is. This album sounds very new wavy. I agree with you on that. She's Tight's a classic. Time Is a Runnin' is okay. Saturday at Midnight, it's all right. Love's Got a Hold on Me, I kind of like that, okay. I Want Be Man, that's basically another I think that's filler, to be quite honest. 4-letter word, that's okay. I don't know. It's an okay record. Ernest, if you know what I mean. I know what you mean. I would probably say I'm going to go with Ryan. 3 out of 5. And what'd you say? 6 out of 10?
Yeah.
I'm going to agree with you 100%. I think, there are good tracks here somewhere. The tracks that are good we know about, it's obvious. Giving this album a 3-star review out of 5 is not saying that this is a bad album.
No.
Was this close to their glory days with Tom Werman and Jack Douglas? No. Do we blame the songwriting or do we blame the production of Roy Thomas Baker? Both.
I'd say both.
I agree. If they could have taken a little bit more time and worked on these songs, I think we would have had a better record. I don't dislike this record compared to what's coming down the pike. if you look at this record compared to what's coming down the pike, this is a pretty damn good record.
Yeah,
Give it
I agree.
But I
I
don't
mean,
think.
I will say that.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, I do think even if this had good drum sound and better production, with the songwriting that's on here right now, I'd probably not be able to give it over a 8 still. So it'd be like if it had a better production, I think the max I could go with these songs would be an 8.
I agree.
Yeah.
But then, who knows? We'll never know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
I can't get rid of Ernesto's. Yeah, I think you are spot on the. What was your final 4 or 5 out of 10? What would you give that?
You're frozen for me over here.
Here,
hold
on. Oh. Oh. I come up.
No.
Ah, crap. Hold on.
All right, now I could hear you.
Well, it's still low, though. I don't know what's going on. We could be having an internet crisis right now.
Yeah.
Coming back. Are we back? All right. Now it doesn't look good. Can you hear me?
No, I can kind of hear you, yeah.
Crap. Well, oh, man.
All right, you're good now.
Okay. Sorry about that, everybody. Beth says it's solar flares. It could be. It could be that Yellowstone is erupting. You never know. Now I see the levels are coming back up. So anyway, what did you remind me, Ryan? What did you give All Shook Up?
I gave it a 4.
A 4 out of 5, so like an 8 out of 10.
Yes, and then
I think that's fair.
Yeah, and then one is 6 out of 10 or 3 out of 5.
Okay.
I think
that I totally agree with you 100% on that.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, they're both good albums. I think
they're both good albums. But the only thing I wanted, would you recommend this for somebody who is looking into Cheap Trick? Would you recommend All Shook Up to anybody who is looking into Cheap Trick?
I would say eventually listen to them. I wouldn't say listen to them as some of your first Cheap Trick albums, though. I mean, I think that like All Shook Up, I think that there's moments on it that could hook in a new listener, like Just Got Back. But even though some of the other songs are really good, I don't think there's enough that would hook a new fan of the band in with. I think it's more of an album you kind of appreciate more once you really love the band already.
If you're like a completist and you love the first album, you love In Color, you love Heaven Tonight and Dream Police.
Yeah. I mean,
there you go. Look at that. I agree with Ryan's recommendation. Give them Dream Police or Heaven Tonight. I agree with that.
I would definitely say Heaven Tonight. I think that's like the quintessential Cheap Trick album. And then Dream Police also. I mean, that there's so much catchy stuff on those. I definitely would not recommend One on One for a new listener, though. I think that would just bore the hell out of someone if they weren't already in the Cheap Trick.
I know you held up One on One earlier. Could you hold that up again, Ryan? Is that the Japanese pressing of that? What's
Yes,
the
it is.
story behind that?
I just found it at a record store. It was like $20. I was like, shit, it has the OB. I'll buy that.
It probably sounds good because most of those
Oh,
Japanese pressings sound clean. And all those
it's
Japanese pressings are all virgin vinyl.
yeah, it sounds top notch. I mean, this is the best sounding Cheap Trick record in my collection. Like the actual quality of the vinyl,
Right,
not the production itself, but
right. But the
it's
pressings, top notch.
yeah,
Yeah, excellent. All
definitely.
right, cool. Well, well, kids, I think you've got our reviews on these two records. It's been a fun discussion. I appreciate everyone who's dropped into the chat. Whenever we
Yeah,
talk Cheap Trick, Ryan, it's always a lively discussion.
definitely.
And that's what this is what this channel's about. I want to have good interaction with the panelists and good interaction with the people that are in the chat.
Yeah.
John the Music Nut, welcome aboard. I was more into one-on-one than All Shook Up, but the latter has grown on me. Fair enough. I understand. Beth says, great discussion. All right.
Thanks, Beth.
Thank you, Beth, for showing up. I need you more often. In fact, we need to do a show together. I need to get your ass on here talking about the groupie lifestyle. Ernesto, good talk.
Yep,
Hey, I
thanks.
appreciate
Thanks a lot.
everybody showing up.
Mm.
So, Ryan, since I've got you, what's coming up on Ryan's Vinyl Destination that you think that Beth should show up for and, get on the chat?
Oh man. Um. Hmm. Well, I don't really know Beth and her wheelhouse, but I have some stuff I'll read off, and if any of them are are ideas that are like them, talk about it. So there's let's see stuff coming up. Peter Jones and I are discussing our musical influences on August 2nd at 8 p.m. Uh, the 15th of August, John Clauser and I are discussing his album that he made at 7 p.m. Also on the 15th, I'll be doing a David Lynch show with Davey and my friend Joey. We'll be talking about the Twin Peaks pilot and our histories with David Lynch. August 20th, I'll be talking about guitars and gear with Grant.
There you go.
Yeah, August 22nd, we got UFO, our best of collection compilation at 8 p.m. August 25th, we got Bob Dylan Best of Compilation Part 1, the 1960s at 8:30 p.m. And that's all I'm going to share for now. I'll save
That's
September
great.
for later.
So, everybody here on the chat, if you don't know Ryan, please check out his channel, Ryan's Vinyl Destination. Please subscribe, like. You guys know the thing.
Yes.
Do what Joe Biden says. You know the thing. Just do it. So, check that out. Next month, Ryan and I will be looking at Next Position Please and Standing on the Edge. Next Position Please is the 1983 album produced by Todd Rundgren, and Standing on the Edge 1985. I can hardly wait to dive into that one.
Yeah.
Because Jack Douglas failed us on that one.
I'm not going to say anything about the album so far, but let's just say the album covers are not going to be very cool anymore.
Yeah, I don't. Well,
Next Position Please is awful. The album cover.
I know. I'm looking at it right now, and I mean, I like that record. I mean, there are some great moments on both of these records. Don't get me wrong. But when Todd Rundgren writes the best song on Next Position Please, it makes me concerned. But I'm just going to leave it at that. Next month, that's what you have to look forward to. Please subscribe to my channel. Please do the thing. Like I said, check out Ryan's channel. He's got tons of content coming up. So in the meantime, I'm going to sign off. Ryan, do you have anything more to add before we wrap it up?
Just, check these albums out with caution. Don't make it the first.
With caution.
Not the first two Cheap Trick albums that you check out, but they're definitely worth checking out. And we would be curious of what you think about the albums. So just review them in the comments, and let us hear your opinion as well.
Perfect. So Ryan will be back next month and we will follow up. So I want to say goodnight to everybody. I appreciate. Thanks, Beth. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Beth.
I appreciate everyone showing up and shooting the shit with us. We'll see you on the next one. And Ryan, good night. And BM Bolt says thank you. BM Bolt, we'll see you on the next one. Ryan, hang on. We'll get a date for our next show. All right. Good night, everybody.
Love and mercy.
Love and mercy.